Hello, Kate. How are you? I hope you are all safe and sound. All right, it feels good to be here. We're starting our term's work. Today we have a topic that we're going to be looking at, and this topic is forces and simple machines. This is the first topic we will be looking at this term. Forces and simple machines. But we are concentrating only on forces today. In the next class, we will look at what simple machines are. So I would like you to pay attention and listen attentively. Okay, now before we go further, we need to know what a force is. What is a force? A force is simply a push or a pull on an object. Again, a force is a push or a pull on an object. For example, if you want to open your door, you need to push it. And that push is a force that is needed to open that door. Again, if you want to close that same door, you will have to pull it. And that pull is a force that is required to close the door. Again, I have a book here with me. The book is here on my laps. I can lift it up. And that lifting is a force. I can take it back to the lab. Taking it back to the lab requires a force to do that. So by the time you pick up something, a force is needed for you to be able to pick that particular thing. There are different things forces can do. Different things forces can do. A force can move an object. It can make an object move. For example, you have a football. For that football to move, you will have to kick it. Now that kick is a force that makes the ball to move. A force can also slow down a moving object. Now, that ball that you have kicked that is moving, is that moving fast at the initial point? But it gets to a point where it slows down. Now, it is a force that is making it to slow down. Another thing a force can do is to stop an object from moving completely. Now see, use that same football that you have kicked initially to explain this point. By the time the football is moving, it gets to a point, it slows down, and then eventually it stops moving. And that is a force too that stops that ball from moving. A force can also change the direction of a moving object. When an object is moving straight, it can change by moving either left or right. It can change its direction of movement. A force can also change the shape of an object. When you have a can of drink that is empty, you can press it. When you press that can, the shape is changed completely. Okay, we have different types of forces that affect us every day. Two of these forces affect us every day. We have the force of gravity, and then we have friction. These are the only two types of forces that we cannot do without every day. But there are still other examples of forces like magnetism, air resistance, and lots more. We will concentrate more on these two forces that affect us every day. Like I told us, these two forces that affect us are gravity and friction. But we need to know what gravity is. Gravity is a force that pulls things down to the ground. Gravity is a force that pulls things down to the ground. It is this force by which things are attracted towards the ground. And what does it mean? It means that whatever thing that goes up will surely come down. Whatever thing that you throw up will eventually come down. Now this paper that I'm holding, I can throw it up and it will eventually come down. And that is because the force of gravity is pulling it down to the ground. If there was no gravity, everything will be floating, including us. Now, how does this gravity affect us? What makes it important to us? It is important because it enables us to stand upright without floating. It enables us to work upright without even falling down or floating in the air. We have another force that affects us, like I told us, and that force is friction. What is friction? Friction is a force that opposes movement. Friction is a force that opposes movement. It is this force that tries to stop objects from moving. It tries. Two objects that are in contact with each other. The force of friction tries to stop the movement of these objects against each other. For example, we have a football and you want to roll it on the floor. By the time you roll that football on the floor, it starts moving. It's at a point, the movement slows down and then eventually it stops. The reason is because there is a force between the football and the ground. And the reason why it stops, it's because the force of friction has succeeded in making the object to stop moving. I'm sure we are clear. The force of friction tries to stop objects from moving against each other. Else, anything you roll on the ground will continue to move without stopping. So friction makes sure that that thing stops eventually. And how does friction affect us? It is as a result of the force of friction we're able to walk on the ground without slipping, without falling. There is a force between our feet and the ground. And that force is friction. It prevents us from falling down while walking. Now, there is something I would like us to know about the force of friction. This force is more on rough surfaces. When surfaces are rough, the force of friction is high. That is, it tries to stop the movement of this object as much as it can. But this force is less on smooth surfaces. When a surface is smooth and you're rolling a ball, it will move for a very long time without stopping. Another example is we find it very difficult to walk on ice because ice is very smooth. We cannot walk on it. If we attempt it, we slip and fall. I'm sure we have gotten that. All right? Okay, now before we go, I have some questions to ask you to know if you were actually following. Number one, you would have to tell me what a force is in your notebook. You get your notebook, you write this down. What is a force? You define a force in your notebook. Number two says you should list 2 things forces can do. I listed about 4 things forces can do. So just tell me the 2 you can remember. The third one is, what is gravity? What is gravity? What did I say gravity is? Write it down in your notebook. And lastly, you should define friction. Okay. If you have questions to ask, you write them down in your notebook so that you can ask me those questions when we're having our live class on Friday. All right? So please, just stay safe and remember to observe all the good personal hygiene. Thank you.